Perfect, perfect. All right. Well, once again, thank you everybody for coming to another Ticket Training Tuesday. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to come learn a little bit more about one of the functionalities of Ticket. Today is going to be about automations, what you can do with them, kind of how they work, generalities regarding that. Just kind of what our agenda is going to look like. We're going to talk about, why you use automations, the flow behind automations, going to talk about some of the use cases behind it, and then go into a live demo of those. Just a bit of housekeeping, as you may or may not have noticed, we are recording this session. So if you'd like to go back and review it, you're welcome to do it or share it amongst organizations for people who want to look into it that haven't had a chance to attend it. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, this is going to be recorded and it is actively recording now. So as you may or may not know, I'm Jackson. I'm a member of the help team at Tikit. You've probably interacted with me before over email. I recognize a couple of names here, so it's good to see everybody. This is the face behind the name. Like I said, I'm part of the help team. If you ever have any questions or if you have any problems regarding Tikit, you reach out to us. I'm most likely one of the ones that helping you out. So why automations? In the name, you want to automate things. It's a very powerful tool in Tikit. It allows you to kind of, like we spoke about last week with deflections, just reduce the overall workload on your agents. A lot of what we want to do with Tikit is to reduce the workload on your agents to make things as seamless and as smooth as possible. And automations are really good for doing, repetitive tasks like escalating, doing change requests, anything that you would need to do anything pertaining to tickets. Like if you want to create a ticket, modify a ticket, that's what automations are used for. And as some of you may have seen already, they're really useful when you interact with Notification Center specifically. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. That's another session. I just wanted to highlight that a little bit to start with. What the flow of automations look like, if you've ever messed around with automations before, you've probably seen this before, but there's three things that count for every automation. There's when something occurs, so you can have that on a schedule. You can have it run on every hour, month, whatever, or an event occurs specifically. And then you can also have it trigger on if a ticket has been modified, if an event, if a task has been modified, if an SLA has been modified. There's a lot that you can do there. Then after you have the automation say when something happens, you want to say, all right, what thing do we want to trigger on? So you can trigger on, like, say you have a life cycle that you want to work with. That's the when you do it. You could trigger on like a status being applied. You could trigger on a phase being reached on a certain title of a life cycle. The if is all about what is the automation looking for to actually accomplish the thing, and then do, like I mentioned in the previous slide, you can either create a ticket, you can update a ticket, you can do notification center tasks, which will be talked about in another session, or you can apply a template to it. Now, like I mentioned, there's three use cases. You can create a ticket based on, like I mentioned, a lifecycle phase being reached. You can create another ticket saying, hey, here is what's going on. We're going to create a ticket based on this lifecycle phase being reached or being completed. You can update a ticket, like say, hey, there's a priority level. This is the high priority. We want this done ASAP. You can update the ticket with an automation instead of having to go in and manually do that. Or you can apply a template to something, say a certain requester has been applied to the ticket, or there's a tag that's been applied to a ticket. We're going to apply a template to that may or may not have already been applied. This is just going to automate that process for you. And this is going to, like I mentioned, reduce the overall workload on your IT employees. Take a drink there. And if anybody has any questions, if I'm going too fast, just let me know. You can either raise your hand or put it in chat. So enough of me talking about it. I'm going to actually show you what these things look like. So I'm going to bring in a ticket page over here. So I have 3 tickets that I made previously. I'm just going to kind of demonstrate those 3 use cases that we have for you. So say you had an employee come in, they need a new computer. We say, hey, I need a new computer here. I have a life cycle applied to it that we want to purchase the computer. We see, hey, the funding secured, has a computer been purchased. In the life cycle, this loads for me. In the life cycle, I've created this previously. I'm saying, hey, there's a task that's been modified. That's the when. It's on an event. My if, I'm saying the status has been changed to the completed status. So I'm saying, all right, we've completed the life cycle phase of it. So we want to move on to the do action. I'm going to create a new ticket that's just for right now, a low priority, making sure it's tagged correctly, making sure the incident type is correct, and then saying, hey, your computer's been purchased. The requester is Adele, and the title of it is, hey, your computer purchase has been, you have a notification. And the reason I'm creating a new ticket instead of just updating the previous ticket is because with life cycles, when they complete, it's going to close a ticket out. So any comment on that isn't going to, like, you're not really going to be able to see that completely. So I'm just creating a new ticket to say, hey, the computer's been purchased. And we can see that in action. Funding's been secured. Has a computer been purchased? We're going to complete it, update the task, let it do its thing. Cool. Task been updated successfully. Perfect. When I go back to tickets, we'll wait for it to kind of do its thing. Sometimes it takes just a second, but we should see in a moment when I refresh that a new ticket has been created with the correct task and everything that says, hey, like in the automation, the computer purchase notification. Give this a refresh. Here we go. Computer purchase notification. And as we saw in the automation, there should be a comment that says your computer has been successfully purchased. Just as a quick example of that. And you can also see, like I mentioned, when the lifecycle completed, that other ticket automatically deleted. So that's why you wouldn't add a comment to it specifically in this case. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about how the updating ticket portion works. So, common problem, everybody knows if you work from home or if you work on premises, a Wi-Fi is broken. You want it fixed. Maybe somebody erroneously put that it's not a high priority, or maybe you didn't know that you could make it a high priority. In the automations, I also have a update to a high priority ticket. So the event is a ticket has been added or modified. And the reason I put add or modified is that if you create a ticket and you make it high priority, this will still function because the ticket has been added with this property. Or if you modify it later after the ticket has been created, you can change the property and the automation will still work. If you had just had added, you would have to do it specifically on when the ticket was created. Or if you had it add modified, you would have to modify the priority at a later time instead of at the ticket creation. So that's just a little nuance as to added or modified. I have the property, the if action to be the priority has been changed to 1, high priority. And we're going to make the due date tomorrow because it's the high priority. We want it done quickly. We're going to have it be done tomorrow. So we'll see if I go into properties. I change the priority to high and I save it. Currently, there's a due date of none. If I save it and then I refresh the page, refresh the ticket, it'll do its thing. We see due date is now June 19th, 2024, because it's a high priority. And you can see that automations has changed the due date to June 19th, 2024, because it's a high priority. You want things to be done ASAP. Cool. So the last thing we'll be talking about with automations is how to apply a template to an automation. And so my example is that interns are visiting. We all love interns. We want to make sure that they're treated right. We're going to make sure that we buy gift bags for them. Now, really what we would want to do here ideally is already have the template applied, but I want to go through and create that automation live to show you how really simple it is, how intuitive it is, and then show you how it works on here. So we're going to go into automations, create a new automation. We're going to call this intern goodie bags. So we're going to have on an event, ticket has been added or modified. Just actually, we can make it modified for this instance just because the ticket's already been created. We're going to modify it and have it apply a template. So for the if, we're going to say a certain tag has been applied to it, evaluation type none, just because that's how tags work. Tags equal, and then we're just going to call it due soon. Because interns are visiting next week, that's going to be due soon. We want this due next week. What we're going to do into the action type, instead of create or update ticket, we're going to apply a template, select which template we want to watch or we want to apply. Look for our template that I've already created. We see one that's 1 week due date. That's the one I created for this instance. Save this, make sure everything looks good. We have our title. We have our when on an event ticket modified. We have our if tags equal due soon. We have our due apply template. Everything looks good there. Save it. Cool. And then you can also do this in the automation specifically, but you want to make sure it's enabled. That's something that sometimes people forget. You see, I just forgot it now, but you want to make sure that the automation is actually enabled, which you can see in the automation. There's a little checkbox right beneath it. So easy to miss, but you want to make sure that's enabled because that's a common thing. Oh, my automation isn't working. Make sure it's enabled first. Cool. So interns are visiting next week. We want to make sure that its property have its tag. Also, oh, and there's something that you want to make sure. Let's go back to here really quickly. I said that the tag is equal to due soon. Since tags you can have multiple tags on a ticket, you want to make sure that it contains due soon also, but or rather include. Not contains. Contains is it contains a certain string, but you want to make sure that it includes due soon, not just equal to, since tags you can apply multiple to. Cool, that's still enabled. Let's go back here. Let's give it the due soon tag as well. Now we see that the due date is also equal to none. And with our automation, it should be equal, it should be set to next week. I'm going to save it. Go back in. I could have just refreshed, but you can go back. Oh, due date none. Interesting. Now that could be due to my template. Let's go check that out really quickly. Due date, 1 week due date. Make sure that its due date is 7 days from now. Give it a tag. Okay, so we know that the template is all right. Let's go back to our ticket really quickly. Make sure that the due date may or may not have gotten set. Due date none. Go back into our automation. Make sure everything looks good. Tags none. Tags equal. Let's just see if equal does it. And if it doesn't, that's all right. Sometimes that, even the experts have their automations mess up at the best of times. So hopefully with the tag equal to due soon, that should do this. All right. Let's make sure property tags due soon. Refresh the page. Give me the week from now, apply the template. Since it's loading a little longer, I'm hoping that applied the template. Not right. Well, okay. Maybe I had something set up in my template incorrectly, but you can see that the automation did actually change the template. The template has been applied, 1 week due date. You can see up here, template, 1 week due date. I think I just set something up incorrectly in my template rather than the automation, because you see the automation did actually apply the template. It did all the stuff in the template, changed its status to pending, its priority, its category, everything there. I think I just set something up incorrectly in the template to set the due date. But you can see that if you do have things set up correctly, that the automation does apply the template when you apply the correct property of the tag being due soon. Now our interns are going to get their goodie bags correctly. Cool. So does anybody want to go through another example, or anybody have anything you want me to try to set up right now, or any questions about what we've discussed, any more uses about automations? I'd be more than happy to set up another example really quickly about another example if anybody wants to see it. I
We
know Jeff
had
wants
one.
me to test. Yeah.
We had one that we were trying to figure out, and I'm not seeing this option in there, so I'm not sure if it is, but when
Sure.
doing templates, we're also assigning people for affected users, and we weren't
Yep.
sure with the automation if we could have that do like send them an email um notification
So
basically.
yeah, I believe so. I believe that's a possibility with Notification Center, actually. Let's go in there really quickly. So let's go into our automation. Let's create a new one really quickly, and just kind of see for Notification Center examples. So your do actions can include Teams notifications and email notifications, and you can set that to be affected users as well. And that's a relatively new feature, so that may have been why you haven't seen it. But yes, if you have a template, you may have to actually do 2 automations regarding that, because you can't apply a template and do a notification center at the same time. So you could say if let's think about this on the fly really quickly. Yeah, if template change to equal, you could set it to, we'll just set it to our 1 week due date template. If that, then you can do so I'm trying to think about the exact line of process here. So you would have one automation apply the template already. So you could do whatever criteria you wanted for that ticket to apply the template. You would have your one automation apply your template to whatever you wanted it to be. And then you would have another automation look at the template, say, hey, this is equal to our whichever template we want, and then go in and create another automation for a notification center do action. And then you could either send a Teams notification to the affected user or an email notification to the affected user, or both. Was that kind of what you were looking for?
Yes, I think it was.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think the nuance there is that you would need 2 automations rather than just the one. But that was a great question. Thank you for asking. Anybody else have anything they want to shoot my way? And I know it's kind of a high level explanation of what automations can do, but they're a really powerful tool. You can see that I really briefly, when I moused over the properties, you can do ifs on a lot of properties, affected users, assignees, the due date, the group it belongs to, if there's a new comment been added. There's a lot of functionality that you can do with these automations that make them very powerful. So you can make them as simple as you want, like I showed you, or you can make them really as complex as you want. And you don't even have to just do one filter. You can add multiple filters. Say you wanted to filter on the affected user being equal to somebody, the assignee also being equal to somebody, and then the group being equal to something. You could set all of those have to be true for this do to actually function. Or alternatively, you could select the or function on this slider here. For any one of these to be true, then your do action takes place. So there is a ton of functionality that, you can get as deep as you want into this. And you can also have multiple blocks of these properties to filter on.
Next week is custom help card. So that's definitely come back next week for custom help card with Justin Wertman. That's a new feature that was released last week. And Justin's going to be walking you guys all through how to set that up, all the different things you can do with it. There's a lot of control there. Again, a lot of functionality, lots of different ways to do it. So come back and check that out.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for that link. Thanks for explaining that. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap up here, or closing thoughts, remarks?
There's a hand up. Anthony?
Hand up.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jackson, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Well, so actually I've been looking more into incorporating the knowledge base into more of our environment. And I might be a little off base here, but is the knowledge base more geared towards deflecting as opposed to, is there a way, I guess, to kind of marry knowledge base items that we already have made and kind of supplement them with automations? Or are they kind of mutually exclusive?
So let me see if I understand this right. Are you kind of wanting an automation to trigger based on a deflected article, or what?
Either
what
or,
are you?
actually.
Either or.
Yeah, either or.
So if I'm going to hesitantly say yes and no. And the reason I say that is because usually whenever a ticket has been deflected or a prompt that isn't deflected to a user, that's kind of the end of the story. They're usually happy with that. They have that prompt at the end that says, is this what you're looking for? Yes, no. If they say yes, great. That's usually it. If you say no, I would envision that there is a way to do the automation based on the type of incident that's being created by saying no. So for example, if you have, a property of request containing, so request change to contains, computer, then you could say, okay, we're gonna, it's already gonna create a ticket, but we're gonna update the ticket to say what group this should belong to, what priority it should be, the assignee, that kind of thing. So no, in the sense that once a ticket has been deflected, you probably wouldn't be able to do anything with automations pertaining to that. But yes, if your user isn't quite happy with the deflected item, then you could do an automation based on those kinds of requests. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually. So that was kind of what my gut feeling was. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, not a worry. Anybody else have anything? Hands up or anything like that? Okay. Well, I think that'll do it then. If anybody has any questions about, automations or really anything in Ticket in general, you could always reach us at the help desk. You can see our email here, help@Tikit.ai. Yeah, if you have any questions pertaining to automations or pertaining to anything at Ticket, we're always happy to answer those or to talk you through any sort of setup guidance that you need. So feel free to reach out to us there. But if there's anything else, I'll go ahead and stop sharing and I can let you all go. Have a great rest of your days. And if you have anything, let me know. I'll be happy to help further.